everybody. Welcome this Monday to Facebook Live with me. I really am excited to talk to you today because we're going to be talking about DNA. We're going to be talking about genetics and different aspects of genetics. I'm going to try to get specific here for what will apply to you, but how you can interpret your genetics for your wellness. So I hope that by the end of this, you have some good clarity on what DNA is, how DNA can help you understand what is going on inside your body and help you on your health journey. So first, I just want you to know that I believe that knowledge is power. I believe knowledge is peace, and I believe that knowledge is clarity. I believe that the Lord created all of this fantastic processes inside our body, and the more we understand them, the less anxiety that we have to have over them, the less fear that we have to have what's going on under the surface, and we can just trust and know that He is God, because it is so amazing and so miraculous, all the things that He has done. And He made you fearfully and wonderfully. He did not make a mistake. He made you the way that you are on purpose, for a purpose. You are made in His image. He made no mistake. Genetically, you are put together the way that you were supposed to be put together. But sin has crept into this world, and I do believe that it has impacted not only our hearts and our minds and our spirits, but it has impacted our bodies as well in so many ways. And so a lot of these genetic variations and deletions and SNPs that have occurred in our bodies, I don't believe that was God's original plan and design, but here we are living with them in this sinful world, and I believe that we can control to a certain degree how our genes are expressed or repressed by our lifestyle choices. And I believe that as Christians, this is important because genes are involved in all of these processes in our bodies, and they govern health and disease within our body. So if you are biologically made up or predisposed to a certain condition, and you are living in a way that is expressing that condition, like you're eating the processed foods, you're doing the things that could lead you down a road to heart disease or whatnot, then you are putting fuel to the fire. You're leading yourself down a route that could be detrimental in the long run. And when you are in that place, you're not going to be able to pursue the plan and the purpose that God had planned out for you because of sabotaging your health in that way. So we want to think about all of these different genetic markers, how they could possibly be impacting you. And some genetics have a beneficial impact, some have no impact at all, and some of them can have a very high impact on our lifestyle. And when that is the case, we want to try to modify those lifestyle factors that could be influencing that gene and make sure that it isn't being expressed to its fullest degree. So when you have a DNA health test, it is by Nordic Laboratories. That is where I do a lot of my DNA testing through, and there are a lot of different DNA tests out there, but this is a health test. It gives you an overall view of what your health is like. You're going to see these biological areas: lipid metabolism, methylation, detoxification, inflammation, oxidative stress, bone health, insulin sensitivity. And then it's also going to tell you about lipid metabolism, it's also going to tell you about insulin sensitivity, iron overload, caffeine sensitivity, PUFA metabolism, salt sensitivity, bitter taste, alcohol metabolism, lactose intolerance, gluten intolerance, vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin B12, and vitamin C. So these are kind of your big hit areas for your body biologically. I'm going to highlight tonight 2 areas: detoxification and inflammation, because a lot of us have genetic variants in these 2 categories, and I do feel like that by modifying lifestyle in these 2 categories, you can really change a lot of the genetic variations. So we're going to just have an example here that it would say, in this person, detoxification has a high impact and inflammation has a moderate impact. And we're going to look here and see that these genes are showing that they are being expressed very much so. And we're going to talk about what that means and some things that we can do to try to change that. So we know our first problem we're going to talk about is detoxification. And we have to think about how we are going to detoxify. Toxins are stored in fat tissue. Water-soluble toxins are directly eliminated via the lungs or the kidneys, and they are excreted by the respiratory, digestive, or dermal systems. So, poop, pee, breath, skin, and primarily they are detoxified through the liver. When we're under a really heavy toxin load, our liver can sometimes get a bit overwhelmed, and some people are genetically predisposed to have trouble detoxifying. So what happens when we're exposed to a toxin, because we all are exposed to the toxins? I don't know about you guys, but the smoke a week and a half ago was outside with the farm animals and all of that. It was toxic to my body. It was a lot of load for my body, to the point that I had trouble detoxifying and developed a cough and lost my voice. And that's because the load of toxins that I took in a very short period of time was troublesome for my body to be able to offload. So when you're exposed to cigarette smoke or pesticides or just smoke from the environment, you have to have activators that activate the substance that needs to be removed, and then you have excretors that start this kind of cascade of events, and they take out the toxins from the body. That binds the toxin to glutathione so it can become water soluble and be excreted through respiratory, digestive, or dermal. So that is what should happen. But what happens in some people is that the activators might happen, the excretors might happen, but maybe they're not functioning optimally because you have some genetic disturbance or some genetic variation. So it can't bind and it can't become water soluble. It becomes stored in the tissues, and that is where we start to have issues with cancers and just chronic disease overall. So please know that whenever we have a detoxification issue, that means that something in this line of events isn't happening the way that it needs to. But just know, if you have problems in that area, and if you have some genes that are not working the way that you need to, how you live and what you eat will impact your genetic expression. And there have been many, many, many research articles written on this. This is one gene, the GSTM1 gene. People that were missing that gene, it was deleted. It showed that if they had a high intake of vegetables, fruits and vegetables, that they had a lower expression of that genetic mutation. People that had a low intake, especially raw leafy vegetables, had a higher impact of that genetic expression. So how you live and what you eat will impact your genetic expression. So what's the solution? So I'm just taking 2 genes here that are under that detoxification category, the GSTT1 deletion. One suggestion could be eat cruciferous vegetables daily. That is a daily intake of that will help that to not be expressed. If you have a GSTM1 deletion, watch your environmental toxins. So pesticides, air pollution, chemicals, that would be something you would want to try to stay away from as much as possible. And then you can do other things in general that can help with detoxification, like sauna, working out, lifting weights, Epsom salt foot baths. All of that can help with detoxification. Some people need additional supplementation like DIM, TUDCA, liver support, anything that opens up the lymphatic system to get stuff out. Some people need additional binders. It is specifically up to the individual and what their needs are, where to go with this. I find this specifically very helpful with children too. I've DNA tested my children. I feel like it helps me to know how I can help them as well feel their best long term and educate them long term on what would be good for their bodies, just knowing their genetic makeup. The second part of this is the problem of inflammation. So what's the deal with inflammation? Chronic inflammation has been linked to a wide range of health problems, including cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, and neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. So we do not want a state of chronic inflammation in our bodies. This is kind of what the DNA health test looks like when it comes up with these genetic markers. And I'm just going to hit on IL-6 here. So these are pro-inflammatory cytokines, and they are supposed to regulate the expression of these inflammatory markers. So low-grade chronic inflammation, we know, is not a good thing for our body. So if you show up with a certain genetic makeup around this IL-6, if you have a C next to it, then that would be associated with higher levels of inflammation and increased risk for insulin resistance, higher blood pressure, all of that. These are a lot of times pronounced in smokers, but not always. You could just have a genetic predisposition. There are other inflammatory markers as well that we could go into, but we know that there are these markers that can then get activated even more and work with other molecules that I talked about with some of the autoimmune stuff, and it can just become an inflammatory nightmare, really. So the solution for inflammation is that you need to decrease inflammation. Regular exercise, maintaining a healthy weight, getting enough sleep, reducing stress, an anti-inflammatory diet, so reducing processed foods, having increased omega-3s like salmon, sardines, and lean proteins. So where do you start? So I thought this was a really fun idea that we could all do together. You can buy your DNA health test today in my lab shop. I have a Rupa Health lab shop, and you can just put it in there. I'll put the link down there in the comments and all of that. But I get the opportunities to sell these tests wholesale. I actually don't make anything from them, but I do believe that putting this knowledge and power in your hands is just so important. So you can put that in your cart. It'll come straight to your house, and then you do a blood test. So it comes in this little box. You prick your finger, then you put your blood spots on the little card, and you send it back. And then we're going to have a live DNA health analysis in a private group on my Get Healthy platform. It's kind of like a Zoom platform. And you bring your results, and we go through and analyze them and come up with a plan. We'll spend 1 hour going through these different results and hopefully creating some clarity. So if you want to be a part of that, I will put a link in the chat, in the comments, so that you can join that session. It is at a much discounted rate than I would do a one-on-one lab review if we're doing it in a group. So I definitely encourage you to take advantage of that if you want to check out your DNA. And just know that we can come up with a strategy. We want you to feel well. We want to think about activity, food, lifestyle modifications. What is it that you need? And just make a plan for you to get started. If it's something you want to do with your kids, that would be fantastic as well. I'm all about that. And we can talk about strategies to help your kids get off on the right start, to learn the things that you wish you knew 30 years ago, and be healthy and well in the world that we live in. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you enjoyed the webinar. I hope that